pressure changes can over time damage the things that are hooked to the plumbing system. So having a stable pressure on there helps ensure a long life of all the appliances.
Now, once we do that, I mean, is that the fix for, are we going to have any other issues? Because, I mean, once we get it between 50 and 60.
Well, that takes care of the pressure from the utility, but it doesn't handle another source of high pressure in most homes, and that one is caused by thermal expansion.
Right.
Now, thermal expansion happens because anytime you heat cold water and the water gets hot, it's going to expand. When it expands, if it's in a system that's completely closed off,
Right.
then it's going to increase the pressure, and rather dramatically and rather quickly. If you have 50 to 60 pounds per square inch coming from your pressure reducing valve, and you have a closed plumbing system, the water heater will, the burner will fire up on a gas water heater, the elements will come on an electric water heater. In a matter of 10 minutes, you go from 50 pounds per square inch, you can go to 150 pounds per square inch. It's because you're heating 50 gallons of water in a 50-gallon tank, it becomes 51 gallons, it's got to go somewhere. You also see this, in fact, your own cars and trucks, because your automobile or your truck engine works the same way. You've got an engine in the car that's completely full of water and coolant, and it's cold, and you turn the engine on and the engine gets warm and it heats the water. Now that water is also going to expand. Now in your car or truck, it has an expansion tank built in. Some people call it a reservoir. That's where you put the radiator fluid is in that tank. That's where the expanded water goes in. And so on a closed plumbing system, you're going to also have to have some kind of container to hold that water that's expanded from the water heater.
Because it's got to go somewhere.
It's got to go somewhere. Now I would say this, that it's always been the plumbing code that you have to have an expansion tank if you have a closed plumbing system. That has been in there since forever. What has changed is that now we have a lot more closed plumbing systems. Essentially all commercial premises are closed plumbing systems, or supposed to be. And I recognize that the enforcement of these codes does vary from place to place, but generally speaking, all commercial buildings are considered to be closed plumbing systems, or should be. And more residences are supposed to be closed plumbing systems. Now a closed plumbing system, well, let me tell you what an open plumbing system is. An open plumbing system is you're getting water piped from the street to the residence. And there aren't any check valves or backflow preventers. So anything that happens to the water inside that residence can push back into the street. So when you get thermal expansion from your water heater, and now you have extra water that's coming back out and needs a place to go, it has a place to go. It can push out into the street.
It goes through the path of least resistance because everything is off. It's just going to go right back into the street.
And you're not going to have this pressure spike because you're on an open plumbing system. If you're on an open plumbing system, you don't need an expansion tank. The problem is that a lot of people are now on closed plumbing systems and they need an expansion tank. And if you don't have one, you will see a dramatic increase in pressure. And that's one of the things that kills water heaters prematurely, destroys toilet valves and a lot of other appliances, is that pressure spike from thermal expansion. You have the water pressure from the utility, you've got that control with the pressure reducing valve. But then the other problem is the thermal expansion.
And most people, or some people, don't even know that they're on a closed plumbing system, and it could change overnight.
They don't. I mean, usually, if there's a backflow preventer installed, you might be able to see that. But a lot of water meters today have check valves built into them. And more utilities are going to putting check valves and backflow preventers in their system because they're trying to protect the public water supply from any contaminants that might come back into it. That's their deal. And so you might not be able to see these backflow preventers, but you can certainly tell that they're there. And the way that you can tell that they're there is to get your pressure gauge. Because if you put a pressure gauge on a plumbing system and it's a closed plumbing system, you can tell that because this pressure gauge is going to read 40, 50, 60 pounds per square inch, whatever the pressure is on the plumbing system coming from the utility. And you put this pressure gauge on, say at the drain valve on the water heater, then you turn the burner of the water heater on, or the elements on an electric water heater. And you wait about 5 minutes. And if you're on an open plumbing system, you will not see the pressure increase. But if you're on a closed plumbing system, in about 5 minutes, you will start seeing the pressure go up. And the pressure usually will double or triple from what the static pressure is from the utility.
Okay.
If that pressure goes up, you're on a closed plumbing system and you need an expansion tank. Then this is an expansion tank here. It's basically, it's kind of a balloon in a can, okay? It's a steel container that has, and I can show you better with this one because it's been cut open and you can see it's got a rubber bladder here inside if we can get a picture of this. So basically that's a rubber bladder here inside, and it's going to have air pressure on one side of this bladder and it's going to have water on the other side.
Okay.
And what you want to do is you're going to pressurize that with air, and as I said, it's kind of a balloon in here. And so now when the water in the plumbing system, let me hold it this way because that's probably the way it's going to be installed. If you have water that needs to push back into the public water supply and you cannot do it because now you have a check valve, well, this gives it a place to go, and it will push up against that bladder inside here. A couple of things about installing these: it has to have air pressure in here to match the air pressure of
Now we
the home's
send
plumbing
it, we
system.
ship it with air in it, but
Yes, we ship it with air in it because we have to put some air in it to maintain the shape and position of that bladder. But we're only allowed to ship about 38 pounds per square inch of pressure in this because of the Department of Transportation regulations. So unless you're installing this on a plumbing system that happens to have 38 pounds per square inch water pressure, it's not going to be the correct pressure. You're going to need more pressure than that. We just can't do that and ship it. And it has a tire valve on here that ought to look familiar to you if you ever put air in the tire. It's kind of the same valve. And so what you want to do is you want to take your water pressure gauge. You see how handy this is? Take your water pressure gauge, measure the water pressure of the home or business, and say it's 60 pounds per square inch. Then before you install this expansion tank, and that's a very important step, before you install the expansion tank, go ahead and put your air pressure in. If you put the air pressure in after you install the expansion tank, it just won't work.
it's going to do nothing for you.
It's not going to help you. So before you install this, you want to check the air pressure, you want to check the water pressure of the building or the home, find out what that is, and then you want to pressurize this with a air compressor or a hand pump to the same pressure. And that's the first step that you want to do, is to do that. Then this is now properly pressurized. Now you install it.
Now, can you install it, since we're talking about the whole system, can you put it anywhere in that plumbing system, or where do we recommend
Well,
putting it?
you will usually see these, they will actually be installed near the water heater because that's a convenient place to do it. If you don't have room right around the water heater, you could put it on the plumbing system somewhere in the house. Besides that, it doesn't have to be next to the water heater to function. I've seen them put under sinks or in the garages or other kind of places. It is important that there's not a check valve between the expansion tank and the water heater, or you're basically back to a closed plumbing system.
It would mean nothing because if you got a one-way valve, the pressure can't get back.
And also, although you can install this on the hot water side of the plumbing system, and it will work, over time, hot water can degrade the bladder that's in there. So if you want this thing to last a long time, then you want to install this on the cold water side. So install it on the cold water side and make sure that you properly pressurize it before you hook it to the plumbing system.
Yeah, that is very important. So pressurize before you install it and try to get it, you can try to get it as close to the water heater as possible, but it can go just anywhere
about
on
anywhere
that,
in the system.
between the water heater and a check valve.
Yeah, as long as there's
Any
not a
type
check
of
valve.
one-way valve.
As long as there's not a check valve between the water heater and the expansion tank.
Trusted and professional, Casey's Plumbing Service.